There's a kind of silence that follows you into every room you enter. It's the silence of feeling like you don't belong there, like you've intruded into a space where people are only tolerating your presence. It doesn't speak loudly, but it hums beneath your every interaction, every meeting, every opportunity. And if you've ever had to carry that feeling into your career, your relationships, your ambitions, you already know the cost. Welcome to Inner Shadow, where we explore the invisible mechanisms of the human psyche. Today's episode is called The Lifelong Cost of Feeling Unwanted on Your Career and Self-Worth. This isn't a story about what happened to you. It's a breakdown of how what happened to you becomes how you live. Let's get into it. Most people think of feeling unwanted as a passing emotion, a low point, a difficult season. But the truth is that feeling rarely stays isolated in memory. It becomes architecture. It constructs the internal framework through which we see ourselves and our place in the world. The sensation of being unnecessary, overlooked, or emotionally discarded in childhood doesn't evaporate. It calcifies. And over time, it becomes an unspoken identity. As adults, we don't walk into boardrooms or job interviews consciously thinking, "I am unwanted." Instead, we arrive already negotiating from a place of reduced personal value. We second-guess our ideas, we over-apologize, we undercharge, we shrink, not because we're modest, but because somewhere inside, something keeps whispering, "You don't deserve to take up space." This isn't self-doubt, this is structural conditioning. When a child is emotionally neglected, when they experience a chronic absence of warmth, recognition, or validation, they internalize a belief, "I must not matter." That belief does not stay dormant. It evolves into what Carl Jung referred to as a complex, a cluster of associated thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that become semi-autonomous. It operates without our permission. It is us, but we are not aware of it. In Jungian terms, the unwanted complex operates as a distortion field. It alters how we interpret praise, how we react to failure, how we trust or distrust success. Even when opportunities arise, we hesitate. Even when praise is given, we question its sincerity. Even when we succeed, it feels like a mistake that will be corrected any moment now. Why? Because deep down, if you don't believe you're wanted, success becomes dissonant. It clashes with your emotional reality. Your body knows how to survive rejection, but it doesn't know how to metabolize belonging, and so it will quietly sabotage the things that threaten that familiar pain. Think of how many people pursue success while secretly believing they don't deserve it. Think of how often imposter syndrome is diagnosed as a confidence issue, when in truth, it's a deeper fracture in the sense of inner worth. Not because someone lacks skill, not because they haven't worked hard, but because early in life, their nervous system paired visibility with danger and acceptance with conditions. You had to earn affection. You had to perform for approval. You were only seen when you made yourself useful. So now, as an adult, you're not chasing success, you're chasing safety. And every achievement is filtered through that old contract. If I do enough, maybe I'll finally matter. But here's the paradox. If your worth is negotiated through performance, you will never feel safe in success. You will only feel temporary relief before the anxiety returns. Was that enough? Did I prove it this time? The result is not ambition. The result is exhaustion. From the outside, you might look driven. Internally, you're navigating a survival pattern dressed up as professionalism. Let's be clear, this isn't about blaming childhood or fixating on trauma. This is about tracing the emotional blueprint that shapes our adult behaviors. If we can't name the pattern, we can't change it. And feeling unwanted is not just a sad memory, it's a lens. Until it's examined, it distorts everything. You won't believe in your value because your inner world was calibrated by people who couldn't reflect it. And what you couldn't receive in language, you matter, you're wanted, you belong, you tried to earn through effort. But worth is not earned, it is claimed. And that shift from external validation to internal recognition is the core transformation. So what does this mean for your career, for your path? It means your relationship with success is inseparable from your relationship with yourself. If you've spent your life trying to prove you're wanted, then you've likely built a life that looks impressive but feels empty. Not because you're broken, but because the foundation is missing. Self-worth that doesn't depend on being chosen. This is the cost of feeling unwanted. Not just the missed promotions or quiet voices. The real cost is the emotional disconnection from your own potential. But naming it is the first act of rebellion. The moment you realize that unwanted was never the truth, only the wound, everything starts to shift. In the next episode, we're going deeper into the financial behaviors and economic self-perception shaped by this exact complex. Because how you price yourself, ask for more, or stay small is not just strategy, it's history. You can't build lasting wealth with a nervous system that flinches every time you ask for what you're worth. If you've ever hesitated before negotiating your salary, if you've ever felt guilt after sending an invoice, if you've ever worked overtime to prove you're not a burden, you're not bad with money. You're carrying emotional debt. Welcome back. In the last episode, we uncovered how the feeling of being unwanted becomes an internal complex, one that shapes self-perception and quietly governs how we show up in our careers. Today, we're going deeper. This episode is about how early emotional rejection becomes a blueprint for our relationship with value, especially financial value. Let's be clear, money isn't just about numbers, it's about identity. It reflects what we believe we deserve, what we're afraid to ask for, and how safe we feel being seen as valuable. And when a person grows up feeling unwanted, chronically unseen, unchosen, or burdensome, their relationship with value becomes distorted at its core. Here's what that looks like. You underprice yourself because asking for more feels like overstepping. You avoid financial ambition because being visible makes you feel exposed. You give more than you take because somewhere deep inside, you've equated survival with being useful. It's not logical. It's psychological. From a Jungian perspective, what we're dealing with here is an unconscious contract formed in childhood. The child who felt like an emotional afterthought starts to believe, I must earn my right to exist. And what follows is a lifetime of overcompensating. That child becomes an adult who doesn't feel safe unless they're over-delivering. They don't rest, they don't receive, they perform. Now transpose that mindset into the world of work, into business, into capitalism. What happens? You don't negotiate, you submit. You don't claim your value, you wait for someone to notice it. You don't build wealth, you burn yourself out trying to deserve it. It's a quiet self-erasure, and it's rampant among adults who grew up emotionally displaced. Let's go deeper. When you feel unwanted in early life, your nervous system adapts to that emotional environment. You become hyper-attuned to rejection, discomfort, and disapproval. This vigilance creates a pattern. Seek safety by pleasing others. That pattern doesn't disappear when you grow up. It evolves. You stop pleasing your caregivers and start pleasing clients, bosses, audiences, investors. You're not trying to thrive. You're trying to be allowed. And because your sense of belonging is conditional, your sense of worth becomes conditional too. You tell yourself, if I over-deliver, maybe they'll keep me. If I charge less, maybe they'll choose me. If I say yes to everything, maybe I won't be left behind. But here's the truth. Chronic overgiving is not generosity. Chronic undercharging is not humility.
They are symptoms of emotional survival. Wealth cannot stay in the hands of someone who feels guilty receiving. Success cannot stay with someone who believes they need permission to exist in the room. And no business model can fix what a nervous system has been trained to reject. Here's another layer. The emotional brain doesn't separate money from identity. When you feel unwanted, asking for money triggers shame. Not because money is shameful, but because being wanted feels unsafe. You've trained yourself to disappear, to not need, to be easy. So when it's time to ask for more, money, recognition, rest, your body reacts like you've committed a betrayal. This is why people say things like, "I'm not good at business," or "I just don't care about money." Often, that's a defense. It's easier to dismiss the structure than to confront the internal wound that the structure exposes. But let's be precise. The wound isn't about greed. It's about dignity. The child who was made to feel like an inconvenience becomes the adult who avoids claiming space, and money, unlike praise or love, requires direct self-assertion. It requires boundaries. It requires the audacity to say, "This is what I'm worth." And that statement, for many, feels threatening. So what do? The first step is seeing this pattern not as a personal failure, but as a form of inherited survival logic. If your nervous system has paired visibility with danger, no spreadsheet or strategy will change your financial life. The work must happen at the level of belief. You have to recognize that your economic behavior isn't random. It is a mirror. And what it reflects is not just your skills or your effort, but your history. It reflects every time you were made to feel replaceable, every moment you felt invisible, every situation where your needs were treated as liabilities. But that reflection is not fixed. It can be rewritten. And that rewriting doesn't begin with money. It begins with worth. It begins with the radical act of no longer seeking permission to exist. It begins with the slow, daily decision to say, "I am not a burden. I am not a transaction. I am a person of value." Only then can you build something real, something lasting, something that doesn't collapse the moment someone questions your value because you're no longer outsourcing it. In our next episode, we'll explore what happens when you get close to success and unconsciously destroy it. Why would someone who wants to be seen sabotage their moment in the spotlight? The answer lies in the logic of the wound.
You spend years preparing for the opportunity. You sharpen your skills, you show up, you finally get seen. And just when things start to work, you pull away. You sabotage the project. You delay the response. You suddenly lose interest. You tell yourself it wasn't the right time, the right fit, the right version of you. But deep down, something else is happening. You're not failing. You're protecting yourself from what comes after success. Welcome back. So far, we've uncovered how the internalized feeling of being unwanted creates a fractured sense of identity, and how that fracture impacts our economic behavior. But there's another cost most people never see until it's too late. Self-sabotage at the threshold of visibility. Let's unpack it. There's a common myth that people are afraid of failure. But if you look closely, you'll notice something stranger. People often fear success more than they fear failure. Failure is familiar. It confirms what you've always feared about yourself. It keeps you small, quiet, hidden. But success? Success brings exposure, visibility, responsibility. And for someone carrying the psychic weight of being unwanted, success triggers a different kind of panic. Why? Because success implies being seen. And being seen for someone who was emotionally neglected is not neutral. It's dangerous. Here's how the loop works. 1. You work hard, often overwork, to prove you're worthy. 2. You begin to gain recognition, attention, or influence. As visibility increases, your nervous system panics. That panic is misinterpreted as, "This isn't right," or "I'm not ready." You unconsciously disrupt your own momentum. That disruption looks different for everyone. Some quit right before the breakthrough. Some pick fights or create drama. Some chase a new goal to avoid completing the current one. Some fall back into perfectionism and never launch anything. But the outcome is the same: retreat, collapse, recoil. From a psychological standpoint, this is a defense mechanism rooted in a deeply embedded emotional logic. If I succeed, I'll be seen. If I'm seen, they'll find something wrong with me. If they find something wrong, I'll be rejected. Therefore, if I succeed, I'll be rejected. This is the trauma logic of early emotional neglect. You're not afraid of success itself. You're afraid of what success makes you vulnerable to: being scrutinized, evaluated, dismissed. To the unconscious mind, rejection after visibility feels far more devastating than never being seen at all. This is why self-sabotage often doesn't feel like sabotage in the moment. It feels like instinct, like a sudden wave of fatigue or doubt or loss of passion. But that instinct is just a protective system trained to keep you away from environments where rejection is possible. Here's the paradox. The very thing you crave, recognition, achievement, impact, is also what threatens your psychological survival. And unless this pattern is brought into awareness, it becomes a lifelong loop. Effort, proximity to success, sabotage, retreat, repeat. Now let's go deeper. Jungian psychology teaches that unresolved complexes operate autonomously. They interrupt consciousness. They override logic. And the complex of being unwanted often attaches itself to moments of growth. This is why even after doing the work, reading, therapy, self-development, some people still crash right before expansion. Because the complex isn't intellectual, it's somatic. It lives in the body, not just in the mind. And the body remembers what the mind tries to override. So when you're about to be celebrated, chosen, or advanced, your body says, "No, too dangerous, not safe." And you comply. Not because you want to fail, but because failure feels safer than exposure. This is not laziness. This is not immaturity. This is adaptive conditioning born from emotional scarcity. Now, here's the most dangerous part of the sabotage loop. After it happens, shame sets in. You beat yourself up. You ask, "Why do I always ruin things? What's wrong with me?" And that shame feeds right back into the original wound. I am unwanted. I don't belong. I don't deserve this. The loop reinforces itself. But here's the shift. What if the collapse is not a failure, but a signal? What if your system isn't broken, but protecting you based on outdated information? This is where transformation begins, not by forcing yourself to push harder, but by listening to the parts of you that learned success equals abandonment. Because if you don't update that internal belief, every win will feel like a threat. Not because it is, but because your body remembers a time when being visible meant being emotionally unsafe. This is why insight alone isn't enough. You need integration,
You need to teach your system, slowly, patiently, that you can succeed without punishment. That visibility doesn't mean exile. That being chosen doesn't mean betrayal. And that's a process. It takes repetition, boundaries, nervous system regulation, a different kind of inner dialogue. But most of all, it takes awareness. Awareness that you're not afraid of the spotlight. You're afraid of what it has meant to stand in it, alone, exposed, unprotected. You're not avoiding success. You're avoiding grief. The grief of never having been seen without condition. The grief of finally arriving somewhere and realizing you spent your whole life preparing for rejection, not reception. And grief is survivable. In our final episode, we're not just naming the patterns, we're breaking them. We'll talk about how to reclaim self-worth without needing to be picked, praised, or proven. We'll talk about the psychological exit from this loop and what it means to finally want yourself.
You've spent years trying to prove you matter, trying to earn your place, trying to outwork a silence that began long before you had words for it. And maybe somewhere along the way, you started believing that your worth was a transaction, something you trade for love, approval, success. But what if it's not? What if it never was? Welcome back. Today we close this series by exploring something radical. What it means to reclaim your self-worth without needing to be chosen. No performance, no negotiation, no permission. Let's begin here. If you've grown up feeling unwanted, chronically unseen, emotionally discarded, it's likely that your entire sense of identity has been organized around compensation. You compensate with productivity, with perfectionism, with compliance. You spend your life managing perceptions, avoiding rejection, and trying to earn a sense of inclusion that should have never been conditional. But here's the truth. Self-worth that must be earned is not self-worth. It is survival currency, a desperate adaptation to a world that once told you you're only safe if you don't need too much. So let's be clear, this is not about self-esteem. It's about psychic autonomy, the ability to define your value from within, without needing constant reassurance from external systems. In analytical psychology, Carl Jung emphasized a process called individuation, the psychological integration of the self, where one becomes whole by reconciling the unconscious with the conscious. In simple terms, individuation is when you stop living as a reflection of your wounds and start living as the author of your own value. And that begins with differentiation. You are not the voice in your head that says you're too much. You are not the fatigue that shows up every time you try to be visible. You are not the guilt you feel when asking to be compensated fairly. You are not the silence you inherited. You are the one who hears it all and chooses something else. Reclaiming self-worth requires this fundamental shift from performance for validation to presence without apology. But let's be honest, that shift feels unnatural at first because your nervous system was trained to equate stillness with danger, to equate rest with irresponsibility, to equate joy with guilt, to equate self-recognition with arrogance. So what happens when you stop compensating?
You feel the collapse of the old scaffolding, the loss of your familiar roles, the fixer, the achiever, the invisible one. You grieve the parts of yourself that only existed to be acceptable. And that grief is sacred, because underneath it lies something truer than any identity you've ever performed. A core self that never needed to be wanted to be worthy. This is the analytical exit. You stop seeking proof that you're enough. You stop auditioning for belonging. You stop measuring your success by how little space you take up. And instead, you begin to build a life that reflects the truth of your existence, not the conditions of your upbringing. You start saying no without apology. You start asking for more without guilt. You start being seen without armor. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to be wanted, you begin to truly belong. Because belonging that requires you to abandon yourself is not belonging, it's bondage. Real belonging begins when you return to yourself, fully, unapologetically, consciously. So what does this mean in the context of work, of career, of success? It means you no longer chase positions to feel valuable. You choose work that aligns with your truth, not your trauma. You create not to impress, but to express. You lead not to prove, but to serve something greater than your wound. And your worth, it becomes unshakable. Not because you have finally convinced the world, but because you've stopped trying to. You are no longer for sale. You are not a product of your pain. You are a presence that remains when the pain has been named, felt, and released. And here's the part most people never tell you. You don't need to be fully healed to reclaim your worth. You only need to stop handing it over. Stop giving it to people who can't see you. Stop giving it to systems that reduce you. Stop giving it to voices that echo your oldest fears. And start giving it to the one who needs it most. The younger version of you who once thought they had to earn love just to survive. Let them rest. Let them belong. Let them return home inside you. This is not a concept. This is a commitment. A commitment to no longer making yourself smaller in order to feel safe. A commitment to no longer delaying your life until someone else deems you ready. A commitment to recognizing that being unwanted was never the truth. It was just the first story you were told. It's time to write your own. Thank you for joining this series. And remember, the value of your existence is not up for negotiation. It never was.